Are we qualified customers?
Great.
Yeah, hey, Mark, you
Hand me the remote on the
That's
table.
right, I'm ready to be here. I should be qualified.
What's that key, Christina? The key.
Key to Minneapolis.
The Topeka.
Key to Pika, I don't know.
Does it work?
Key to the shoe.
The peak is closed. Did you guys hear the audio?
That's right. Starbucks is rolled up too.
Well, hello again.
Hi.
I'm gonna introduce two people to you in a minute that'll take you for the next hour. And at the conclusion of this, Mark will have an announcement about something you may want to hang around to see. You might like. A lot of you guys know about Alcatraz and have heard the name Alcatraz. And Alcatraz is Newtek's ivory tower. It's no coincidence that the programmers are treated great at Newtek because Tim was a programmer, worked for other people, wasn't always treated great, and said, you know, someday when I have a company, I'm going to treat the programmers like kings. And that's what Alcatraz is all about, is treating the people that turn out the great products really like they're as important, and treat them as important as they actually are. You're going to meet two really important people tonight, Steve Kell and Daniel Kay, who I'll introduce after I show you a brief tape here. When we were working on 1.0 of Toaster, it was hellish. You know, you Amiga dealers here that were around then know that it was very late. We were taking flak, arrows in the back, as it were, and the programmers were under tremendous pressure to ship the Toaster. And we did it. So Tim and I thought, you know, we need to do something dramatic for these guys. We said, let's take them to the West Indies. But let's just not go to one island. Let's go to 5 islands in 5 days. Let's get a jet and just fly to the different islands. And we leased a jet at this time and went to 5 different islands with the programmers. And we have a rule at Newtek called the camcorder rule. And it's a rule that you always need a camcorder with you because something amazing might happen. Now, any time that anything amazing has happened, we've not had the camcorder with us. But at this trip,
Good rule.
yes, it's a good rule. Unfortunately, it doesn't work very well. But Steve Kell was handed the camcorder at this for this trip to document this vacation. Came back from the trip, gave the tapes to Tony Stutterheim, who did Revolution as our video producer. Tony started working on the tapes and said, "My God, this is terrible. You know, this guy knows nothing about video production. You know, wow, what the hell is this?" So he said, "I'm going to do the best I can, and I'll edit together a vacation video." And he decided to get Ethan. So I'm going to show you that tape, which is the Alcatraz vacation tape to the West Indies, right after we shipped the first Toaster. And I'll leave that.
Never before seen footage outside of that.
Yeah, first time seeing it.
That's how wide I am. I will do another check when we get back. We are in lovely, sunny Florida. Here we have some very disappointed people who, at this moment, are wishing they were back in Arkansas. Well, here I am at the Communicore. It appears that everybody has left me because of the rain. I think I saw them running into the rain saying, "Just wait here, we'll be right back." Robert? Charles? Junior? Ken? I don't know where they went. I could stand up here all day and not find Robert and Ken and Junior and Charles, but I think I'm going to go next door to the other building. As long as I'm waiting in line, it ought to be a building I'm really interested in. This is boring. It's not computers and stuff. I mean, you can have a lot of fun getting lost. And again, I don't know where the rest of the Traz party has gone. Maybe it's avoidance of getting to where I'm going. I'm kind of wondering about now whether Charles or somebody wants to find a raincoat. It's just part of me. Maybe I was born that way and it's just the way I am. Or maybe I do it on purpose. I don't really know. I haven't analyzed it that much. Where's Junior? Where's Ken? Maybe it's more fun trying to get unlost than actually getting lost. I don't know. But I have that reputation. Here we go. St. Lucia's where we're headed. See you in St. Lucia's. Oh, nice landing. Well, I think the first thing they have to think about is that they may potentially want to use every scene that they tape. They don't want to just waste footage, like leave the camcorder on. Oh, Poppy. Usually I like to plan every shot before I take it. Some things I like to look for are shots where there's a lot of action. People catching shots where there's a lot of color. I don't know if you can see it. In the ocean, I like to think a lot about the lighting. I like to take shots at nighttime. Another thing you have to be really careful about is holding the camera steady. It's like I'm always tempted to hold the camcorder up and point it out the window when we're driving down the highway. You get what you get. That's the deal. You get what you can have. I like to do a lot of just lock off my shots and kind of treat the video camera like if it was a still camera, and not do a lot of fancy pans. Okay, now I'm moving the camera around a little too much for professional stuff, but suggestion I like to make is they have to, while they're doing the taping, they should be thinking, how are all these little clips going to fit together and tell a story? I don't know if I got that or not. We're now headed to the Hot Sulphur Springs, which is an dormant volcano.
Bye. Oh, sila mo yung kuya. Kaya ko pala ng bahay ko.
Yes, I would think it's unsafe, and I am.
I think there's power in numbers.
Well, we're sorry about getting outnumbered.
The lab is quicker than one in the middle. We are right in the volcano. The yellow stuff you're seeing is sulfur. And the white is coming from and the black is black lava. And we also got iron and magnesium. Sinus is good for and many other sickness.
It's very warm here today. I would say it's probably mid-70s. Light snowfall.
10 final moments. I mean,
Adios, Mon.
welcome home.
So Steve Kell was duped into that, thinking he was doing a tutorial tape. And what Tony said was, you know, we really need your advice, Steve. You know, we're going to be making a tutorial tape, and no one better to ask than you about professional video tips. So he had no idea what he was doing. Well, Steve and Kel and Daniel Kay are two very important members of Alcatraz. Steve, as I said last night, has done more programming on the toaster than anyone, and had more to do with what the toaster is all about in software-wise than anyone else. And I'm sure he has he'll tell you about that. Daniel does an interface design. He also interfaces with the outside world. Daniel is one of the reasons we've had such success in Hollywood. He's helping non-technical toaster users in Hollywood learn to use the toaster and use Lightwave. And so he's been really important in getting the technical information distilled into something that more people can understand and helping people use the toaster. I'd like to introduce Steve Kell and Daniel Kay.
So now that you've attended the master's classes here and seen the tape, I wondered if I could interest you in attending the Skill Advanced Video Techniques. Anyway.
Can we see your can now?
I don't really have any kind of thing at this point, but anyway. I'm Skell.
I'm Daniel. Nice Nice to meet all of you.
and we're from Fraz. And
Let
I
us
suppose
out for just a day or two.
Fraz is short for Alcatraz, so for those people who are beginners at this. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about myself, since you've probably never seen me before. And we're going to kind of both do the same thing. We'll kind of let you know us a little bit. Anyway, I was born a nerd before nerds were fashionable, actually. And then I kind of developed the nerd into kind of a real art form. And I grew up in Nebraska, and it's a lot like Kansas. So somehow I think I was getting prepared to move to Kansas all that time. And but I started out in computers when computers first started becoming popular, around in the early 80s or late 70s. And it was one of my hobbies. And like a lot of people at that time, we were all called hackers, but I think we were good hackers in those days. That's before that developed that terminology. But anyway, I was going to college, got an engineering degree, but with an engineering degree, what can you do but go out and get a real job? And it didn't seem like that's how I wanted to spend my life. So all the time I've been programming, it was a great hobby, and I would basically just program and skip my homework and so on. And I thought if I could only make a career out of my hobby, that would be just the best thing possible. And at the time, I was kind of building my own computers or working on primitive computers from the early 80s. And I thought the machine to really make money on hadn't been invented yet. And then one day, I picked up Byte magazine, and I read about the Amiga computer. And this was back in 1985. And then, within probably a week or so, I actually saw one of these machines in Lincoln, Nebraska, and that was probably the very first machine shipped to the Midwest. I don't really know. And I said, I want this machine. I couldn't believe the things that it could do, and I just thought, you know, I was excited about computers in the early 80s when the Trash 80 came out, the TRS-80, and this kind of, you know, gave me that same excitement again of computer full color and audio and all these fancy custom chips inside it. And I just thought this really, really is a great opportunity. I mean, at that time, IBMs weren't even around yet, or they were just starting out. And Apple computers were kind of crude and so on. The Macintosh had been out a year; there wasn't any software available for it. So so I fell in love with the Amiga, and I got one of these machines, and I had actually had to get real jobs while I was a student, like working on loading docks and working in paint factories and all that kind of sweaty work. And I thought, well, I could just invest that money and stretch it out for, well, maybe forever. I don't know. So I put the money away and made some money off of it, and decided to become a computer hermit. So I just locked myself in the cheapest place I could find to live, and surrounded with computer equipment. And with all my manuals spread out all over the floors, and computer magazines everywhere, with little paths to like bathroom and kitchen, and living off popcorn and rice and ketchup. And
he's serious. He's
yeah.
not even joking about this. He's totally serious.
And
Ketchup is an extra.
you know, this was a house that had railroad tracks on 3 sides. So I'd be programming away, and then my monitors would shake, and I'd stop for a little bit until the train went by, and I'd wave at the people on the Amtrak. And well, anyway, because that was my lifestyle, you know, my best friend was the computer. I talked to the computer all the time, and I thought in programming languages, and whenever I had to actually speak to people, unless they were programmers, they wouldn't know what my language was. I'd talk, and they could understand me, but normal people probably couldn't. And I think the only people I ever had come over were fellow programmers, and I always had something to kind of razzle-dazzle them with. And I don't know, I just lived for those few times that I could show somebody some code that I wrote, and they go, wow, how'd you do that? And but the only problem with this whole thing is I hadn't made any money on it yet. And I thought I had learned a lot in the meantime about 3D graphics, and at that time 3D graphics there really wasn't much available. But I figured out out ways of really rendering 3D graphics extremely fast. And I was going to use that technology in some type of a really advanced video game, much better than anything that was available. And I played around with audio digitizing, and I do a little bit of hardware too. So a lot of times I combine software and hardware and so on. And but I thought, I don't have a company, and I don't know how to run a company. I just know how to program. So I was looking through something that I got in the mail called Deluxe News. And this was a newsletter from Electronic Arts that Paul Montgomery happened to be the editor of. And he, being friends of Tim Jennison, would fill Electronic News about half full with New Tech news. You'd be reading this article about some EA product and it would say, hey, it really works well with the video digitizer from New Tech called DigiView, and tell you how to use DigiView with the product. And it mentioned in there that New Tech had this team of programmers, and DigiPaint wasn't available yet. The only product that New Tech was selling was the video digitizer called DigiView. And so I thought, well, okay, my money is run out. I still have payments on this computer stuff, and my game is probably months away from shipping, and my audio digitizer is a great design, but I don't know how to manufacture hardware. So I went down to Kansas, and anyway, I sat down with Tim, and I happen to have stacks and stacks of discs, all full of all these hundreds of things that I worked on in the last several years. And I showed them the 3D stuff, and I had a thing where you could take an object, digitize it from different angles, and then put it up on your computer display and like rotate it around with the joystick and see it from all different angles. And I showed them, audio stuff that I worked on. And Tim, he was also a person who had like stacks of ideas. He had just stacks of papers. And I bet you could take any one of those sheets of paper and read it, and it'd be like a multi-million-dollar idea for a product. But he'd only shipped DigiView because he was just one person, and he didn't have anybody to work on these stacks and stacks of ideas. And I had many, many ideas, and I needed a company. So it looked like the perfect opportunity to get together and make a team. And speaking of team, when I read about team of programmers, while I was down there, I'm looking around, and it's kind of empty. And there's a few computer systems set up, and their hard drives going real loud. It's like, boy, it's kind of noisy down here, and no programmers, and one video game. Well, Paul Montgomery had started working for New Tech about 1 month before that. And I think what he meant by team of programmers was he was starting the team of programmers. So I guess.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about my background too, and then we'll get back to some more Steve stuff. You really can't go to school really to be an interface designer. At least you couldn't when I was in school. There was nothing like it. I mean, I think when computers started out, the hardware itself was so slow that it didn't matter if the interface took all year to punch in a number, because if the computer was still going to be waiting on the computer to give you the result after that. So when I started off thinking about technology and all of this, I actually approached it from a different perspective, because my background, I'm from San Francisco, my background is completely in music and arts, and my stepfather and my natural father were both professional musicians in the city. And I fiddled around with electronics a little bit, but I always had this music and art side. And so kind of my story is how what it kind of takes to be an interface designer. And I think one of the things it takes is a lot of depth into something that absolutely has nothing to do with computers at all. I don't care what it is. It could be anything. You have to be thinking away from computers, I think, to really understand how difficult they can be to work with. When I finally got involved with computers, it was kind of a fluke, because I was in college and I was thinking about, well, what classes am I going to take this quarter? And I caught my eye caught a little poster across the room that was a little class on computers and art. And I said, well, that's interesting. I've always been interested in computers, I guess, and some of the kind of, and I'm an artist and essentially changed my life because as soon as I got into it, it was absolutely for me. It was 100% for me. It had, I had a wacky professor that is one of my mentors whose whole goal in life is to be the first artist in space, and which is kind of a wacky thing. We just felt like, you know, if artists were in space, we could do some pretty amazing things. I don't know quite what all those things were, but painting in space, I don't know. But through these classes and getting into conceptual design, I did a lot of really wacky projects. One of which was we had to go out into the environment somewhere in our neighborhood and do something that would essentially add a new element to the neighborhood. So I decided to go around the city, go around San Francisco, and collect milk crates from everywhere, these little plastic milk crates. And I built this humongous sculpture in the middle of my blue-collar neighborhood in the middle of the day. And it was huge. It's this humongous sculpture, and I built it. And people would come by, and they would just marvel at the sculpture. And just, hey, what's it about? And everything was, you know, all about interacting with your environment and everything. So I figured this is really great, but it wasn't really making me any money. So I somehow got hooked into my professor. Said, you know, I got this friend that's he has this school where people learn about computers and creating art and all that. It would be great there. So I went there and actually started teaching. And what I taught on was a product. It was a 3D device called Cubicon, which is really what got me into interface design because it was one of the worst interfaces ever built. Ever. After weeks of work, I could get an artist on the computer to make a cube or a sphere. That was about the extent of it. So we had lots and lots of animations of cubes and spheres kind of rotating around each other in different ways. It was wonderful because they could get really creative with it. After a while, people got really good at that stuff. But that was the extent of it. After this, I said, you know, there's really got to be something better than this for these artists out there. There's got to be something that people can get their hands on that's kind of, and that's precisely when the Amiga hit. When there was just the first announcement, I was reading everything. I had pictures on my walls of, you know, every article, of pinning them up all over the place. And as soon as there was one available, I scrapped together every bit of credit I could, put it down on about, I don't know, 6 different credit cards of each with, you know, a couple $100 of credit or something, and just got it. I just said, this is for me. I've got to get it. Right after that, there wasn't that much software. I decided, you know, I met a friend, my partner Peter, who also works at Newtek now, through this Computer Arts Institute place. And we started talking about the Amiga. And I said, you know, we could do something for this thing. He had been involved with a product called, most of your Amiga dealers in the past, called Live, which was by A Squared. And so Peter and I sat down and said, what the heck, let's start a company. Let's do something with art. It's kind of neat. And we, Live in a way, it was a video digitizer that worked in real time at very low resolution, but you could do cool things with colors. So me with my artist background and everything, I said, let's do something wacky, let's play around with this in real time. And it was kind of like a first extremely primitive video toaster in a way. You could do effects with it and all that, but everything ended up looking like that bad posterization effect you get on VCR. But it was really fun. So we got involved and just decided, you know, we didn't know that we couldn't start a company like this. And, I mean, one of my favorite stories about this is that when we started it up, we spent quite a bit of time planning out the product and designing it, and it's called Envision, and just working on it to death. And then we got ourselves a programmer. We gave ourselves 6 months to develop this product. It's got to be done in 6 months. So we were really disappointed. We finished in 7 months. We thought that we just failed completely, but since then I found that most product development takes a bit longer than that. But we did that, and then we came up with another product we made, called Lawn Performer, which was kind of a presentation product. And this is about the time that I had my first introduction to Newtek, which was I was giving a demo at FOG, the First Amiga Users Group in California, and Paul happened to be the head of that group as well as part of Newtek. And my introduction to Paul Montgomery was, hi, I'm Paul Montgomery. Newtek will own desktop video in the future. And so it was quite an introduction. So that was kind of my first introduction to Newtek. I'll let Steve go on with his, and I'll come back to it.
I wanted to kind of tell you how the toaster came about, what stages we went through a little bit, because being a revolutionary product like that, how does that happen in a new company who is small? Well, a lot of times it's the small innovative companies that can invent these things because they don't know the rules. Everybody's telling them, well, this can't be done, but they'll try it anyway. And that's why Sony hasn't done this, or Panasonic. And we had that advantage of being small and just trying anything and working our asses off until we had a product. We weren't going to give up. And well, anyway, it kind of, when I first started working for NewTek, the first week, Tim says, Convex is coming up. We have to have something really, really exciting to show these people. And it wasn't the video toaster yet, but he did say, I think the Amiga might be capable of doing full motion video right on the computer display, something that looks like video. And it hadn't ever been done before on any microcomputer. And me being a new employee, I just had to go, yeah, sure, yeah, we'll do that. And then I find out, oh, I have 3 days to do this. So I worked day and night, taking audio routines that I had worked on before, and taking really, really fast routines for moving data around that I used to manipulate the video. And what we did is, some of you might know Laura Longfellow.
Sure.
Well, I don't know how many people have an Amiga background or knew about those days, but we just hired Laura Longfellow also. And she was just kind of like working in the office and stuff, and she was a new employee, so she had never been to a show, and we didn't know how to use her really. But she was kind of cute, so we thought, why don't we take her picture? And Max Headroom was a big hit at that time.
Mm-hmm.
We thought, we'll take her picture, and she'll be saying something, and we'll digitize a whole bunch of pictures of her using DigiView. And we'll take those pictures and use the code that I wrote to get them moving on a computer display. And so Laura says, hello, welcome to NewTek. And of course, so what I had to do with that is make it go, hello, welcome to NewTek, And we stretched it all out. We took pieces and we spliced it all together so it looked like she's sitting there blinking her eyes and moving her head once in a while and talking. And so we stretched it out to like a 2-minute demo. and we showed that at Comdex, and people said, what does that prove? You're showing a videotape. And so then we had to put up a sign saying this is not a videotape.
Handwritten.
Yeah, probably handwritten. And so anyway, that was like my first thing that I wrote at NewTek, and I thought, this is really fun because I enjoyed writing that, and then all of a sudden I hear people talking about it, and I hear reading about it in manuals, and everybody wanted the program that did this. Of course, sorry, can't get that program out, but so then after that, how do we talk ourselves after we did full motion video? Well, NewTek is always the company who's trying to get our customers extremely excited about NewTek. Not necessarily individual products, but just NewTek in general. And so we always have to, we'll spend the time to do a demo that shows off our products, but it'll be a demo that's entertaining and not just something, like a spec sheet or something on our products, but something that you can really get excited about. And so we thought we'll do some kind of a demo on 2 discs, and we'll get it done by end of the year or whatever. And again, I had a very short time to do this, and I thought this is a great chance I can prove myself a second time. So we did Demo Reel 1, and this also had moving video on it, and little pictures, little kind of like QuickTime does now. But of course, this was in 1987, end of '87, and we had like 4 tracks of video moving simultaneously, and we put in video effects, and these were some of the very first digital effects ever done on computers, and so I got to develop all the code that does that, and it was the perfect experience that I needed to then move on to the toaster. And the Demo Reel 1, I think, probably sold more Amigas than any other demo ever on that machine. And people thought it was so cool that they thought, oh geez, this is the result of a program called DigiFX, a fictional program that NewTek never shipped. Yet there were articles written on it, and almost like reviews and showing results from DigiFX, and particularly in European magazines. They would take any little lead and blow it into a full
When did they ship
blown
that
story.
product, Steve?
Well,
I've been waiting.
I think DigiFX is toaster maybe. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. But well, around the time I was finishing Demo Reel 1, Tim came into my office and he said, you know, wouldn't it be really nice if we could take real video and push it around on a display and maybe do blinds and page tears and all of these things? And he had talked to Brad Carvey, who maybe a lot of you have met, and who was a digital designer. And Tim and Brad both thought, well, you know, it wouldn't be too hard to at least build a prototype, but we didn't have any idea whether it would really work, because it was such bizarre ideas. And he asked me, you know, do you think this code is possible? I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, we can try. And I thought if any, you know, this would be, okay, this again would be pushing my skills even a little farther, and I'd have to become the best Amiga programmer probably in the country to pull this thing off. And but I knew the machine totally inside and out. And the thing about the video toaster is that the hardware is relatively simple compared to what the device does. And we put a lot of power into the software. And being on the Amiga, we could then further take advantage of the custom chips inside the Amiga. And so anyway, we thought we'd be able to build a prototype. And so Tim and I went down to Albuquerque where Brad Carvey lives. And it was another like 3 or 4 sleepless nights working straight through and eating ice cream bars for food. And we plugged the thing in and we started seeing video. It's like almost the first time we tried the thing, it worked. And I had been plugging away doing this code. Nobody really even said, you know, this is exactly what we need. I just thought, wow, this is the perfect device to program on. I'm going to go out and do some shrinking rectangles and fly them around the screen as test code. I thought, why not? And so we try the code out, and all of a sudden there's now rectangles flying around and shrinking and expanding, and we're doing mirror effects. And it was just like unbelievable. I mean, I'd never worked on any kind of device like a toaster where I could program for 1 hour and then go in the other room and see a live, real, you know, full motion, smooth effects like that. And it was great to program on. And we didn't know if anybody would buy such a product. It was fun for us. And you know,
Really
Paul
didn't matter too much,
Montgomery
actually.
said, boy, this seems like a cool thing to work on. And we had kind of, at that point, like accomplished our goal. It's like, wow, it's working. It, you know, proves our concept. Well, it worked so well, we thought, we'll take this to Comdex. And by this time, you know, the first Comdex I was talking about was spring. This is fall Comdex. And anyway, I mean, that started the kind of the whole religion. People saw this thing at Comdex and they couldn't believe it. And first off, they're going at a computer show and they're seeing video effects, which right there was out of the norm. And they're seeing that it's all being done in a computer with a monitor sitting on it. It's like not stacks of equipment. And it just, that of course led to Computer Chronicles a couple months later, and then the whole buzz started, and many articles. And of course, now that it was going to be a product, we thought, well, geez, we better allow enough time to actually get this thing finished.
Like another 6
Yeah.
months, I think, wasn't it?
Well, more like 6 weeks, and we finished right on schedule 3 years later.
So, right before the product shipped, there was a lot of stuff to do, and the way NewTek works is really great. We're a very, very tight team of people. NewTek believes really strongly in the idea of basically like one programmer, one product. We don't take this whole idea of, well, just add another program, 100 programs, we get the toaster done, or whatever, or So it's very difficult, very, very difficult to get a job at UTech, actually working at UTech. When I was doing the first, my first level of development of Toaster, was for Toaster 1.0, and we had come out and seen Tim and Paul, this is Peter and myself from UTech. It's actually from Milan. We went out there and we were basically exposed to this incredible oasis in the middle of a wasteland in Kansas. Walked up to, of course, you've heard all about nuclear waste disposal systems. My first introduction to that was Tim walking out with a dewar of liquid nitrogen and looking at some kids outside, just pouring, because they were kind of peering in the windows, pouring it in this huge spray of steam and stuff, and the kids just scattering it. We were out there, and we just started talking about all sorts of things that we could do. One of the things that I was most interested in, that we ended up kind of doing just more and more of, was the interface design part of it. We had worked really hard on the screens and things for a long performer and all that, and I felt like we had a real we were basically better than anyone else in the industry, in the media market, at least, doing this stuff at the time. And so, what a great opportunity. We saw it immediately. The Toaster just knew this is it. This is the first time we saw an effect. It's like, first thing in our mind was, we have to get one of these so we can play with it. Second thing was, we have to do something on this product. That it needs an interface, it needs a switcher, it needs the screen. So, working from kind of my background, which had almost nothing to do with computers, and with Tim's ideas and the team's ideas, we kind of came up with this idea of making it so you could have a device that you could use kind of in real time, like the Toaster does, by hitting buttons and all of that. Something that perhaps did not use, say, pull-down menus to do those kinds of functions. That wouldn't have worked. And make it look kind of cool and new and different, and we started going that way. Another thing that we ended up doing, after we done the switcher, we did, at the same time, our programmer worked on Chrome effects for the color processing. We liked doing kind of the wacky aspects of the Toaster at that point, kind of wild things. Eventually another thing that we worked pretty hard on was the 2.0 effects. And the 2.0 effects is basically a study of how 3 people can survive in a 10 by 12 room with nothing but Coca-Cola and Crunch taters for months, and design effects and what kinds of things you come up with. It was after one session where I was up for about 30 hours, and I began to make a sheet noise. I'm very good at making a sheet noise. Where
Do it.
So it was after a particularly long session where we were doing that I came up with the idea of, no one else had a falling sheep effect. I mean, and as a matter of fact, I think the Toaster is still the only device in the world that has a falling sheep effect. So I think it's trademarked or patented or something too. So we did that. We had all sorts of techniques to try to come up with things like this. One of the things we did to inspire ourselves to try to finish these effects, because they're quite intricate and difficult to do. We would work on an effect, and every time an effect was finished, we would do an effects dance. And so we would all get up, I'll finish the effect, we'd show them, we'd go, wow, this is great. We'd show the other people the effect. It was Arnie Cashin was also at UTech, and Peter Chisholm and myself. And we would just run around the office and just do this kind of dance and stuff like this, run around. And that's basically how a lot of the 2.0 wild, wacky effects got done. And we didn't know, actually, we didn't show any of these effects really to UTech at all until we sent a big chunk. We'll use a couple of them. And so we got as soon as they'd gotten them, I remember getting a call from UTech, and I guess everyone was kind of gathered in a room. And it was Tim, they were on speakerphone, and so we were kind of listening to what the result was. And it was like, well, you like it? And it was just silence on the other end. It was just like nothing. And then there was cheers. So I guess that meant, boy, I guess we got a couple of the product. So it turned out that I think initiated a pretty strong relationship between Elan Design and UTech. And then eventually, the Toaster was just such an incredible thing. It was doing so well that most of Elan Design decided, let's go do Toaster. And that would be the only thing that would cause me to move from San Francisco, California, by the bay, beautiful city. I lived in there So that's what it would take. I always tell people I moved to New Tech. So we have even though Topeka is pretty much, well, I call it the heartland of technology and beef. And, even though it's kind of a wasteland, and that's, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we have fun there. We like to kind of have fun with the local people. We like to get in our sports cars, and we all have New Tech plates on there, and we like to go up and down the streets very fast in our big motorcades. And we like to do the same thing on roller skates.
Yeah.
We'll put our roller skates and
Middle of the night.
skate middle of the night. And they tried to ban skating actually in Topeka, and we kind of fought that a little bit. And then I think officially it is banned, but they won't arrest New Tech people. And we will skate up and down the streets trying to get arrested.
Although I was skating there once, pulled over, a group of us were skating, we were pulled over by the police for skating. It's like,
Serious business.
yeah, it was,
Yeah.
it was very serious. The other thing that we do is, all sorts of wacky ideas happen because we're a group of people that are from very distinct areas. For example, Arnie Cashlin, one of the New Tech people, he went to school as a physics major, and he knew about this great thing you can do with liquid nitrogen and 2-liter bottles, where you take a little bit of liquid nitrogen in the bottom of a 2-liter bottle and squeeze the cap on, and then run away. And in a couple of minutes, the most incredible explosion occurs. And you just like this, it's amazing. So I had this wacky idea that if we took garbage bags and filled it with helium and tied these bottles to them and set them off, after a few minutes, somewhere over Topeka there'd be a massive explosion. So we had fun from New Tech's roof doing that for a bit of time. But you know,
I like the one that got caught in the power line.
That was great.
About
You
blew
were
up the
pretty
power
scared.
transformer.
Yeah. One time we were blowing up things, and we put it under a box, and the box blew up, just went like this. Right at that time that happened, a police car drove by because I guess someone was complaining for some reason. And the police officer came up to Tim and said, "So, one of the boxes on?" And Tim said, "Okay." But anyway, so we have fun, but really the philosophy is play hard and
Yeah.
happen, but we end up pushing pretty hard.
Actually, when I first interviewed with Tim, one time I said, it should be easy to run a business. Now, I haven't run a business. It's easy for me to say that. But it's a simple equation. All you have to do is optimize for profits. And Tim says, no, that's not it. And I thought, oh man, I really goofed here. He says, you optimize for fun. And so, our philosophy really is, it used to be work hard, play hard. Now it's play hard and work will take care of itself. And so, we always have to be, it's like kind of we're all our best friends at New Tech. And we always do things together, go on the movies, go on trips together, we'll fly out to California on our jet and go to concerts. And it's like, that's what makes us a team. And then we can get the work done. And it makes us also want to be at work like 80 hours a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Because we know we're mixing fun in with that. And we can pretty much isolate ourselves from the rest of Topeka.
Yeah.
We have our own little world. So
There's really not much else either, but we're still really, we've made Alcatraz really an oasis. We're all work really closely together all the time. And it's an incredible experience. It's like being immersed in something completely. And one of the greatest things is though that when you get to come outside,
Yeah.
and come to a place like, we saw your mall today, and the mall here in Minnesota, and just blown by how big it is. It's like the world is sometimes kind of changing around us. So this is kind of our chance, we're getting a chance to get out some more, kind of see what the rest of the world is like. And that's another reason why we're here too. We wanted to get from you guys, what kinds of things that you're interested in, want in future products or features. And all. We can't, of course, talk to you at all about 3.0. We've been sworn to secrecy on that, but we would like to hear the kinds of things you're interested in. So, do you have anything?
there was was one thing that I forgot to do,
Oh.
and that's when I was talking about the first toaster, and how great it was to program on this thing. Well, I actually dug this out of our storage
Okay,
room.
don't tell Tim that it's zero, okay, no one tell Tim.
This has never been shown to anybody other than a few people at NewTek, and I don't even think you had seen this before. And it's, when we developed this, we always kept it hidden in a machine underneath the desk with like stuff draped over the desk. And now, being the first toaster, it had a few problems. This was manual hue. It didn't have auto hue in those days. And also, this did other things. I think it probably did the little capacitor on the side of the toaster too. It did it all right here.
Straw user interface, nothing.
So we had to have a hole drilled in case a little straw stuck out. And I think this was the toaster that probably was even used for Computer Chronicles and some of that early stuff. Now, it doesn't look much like a toaster nowadays. You don't even see any custom chips on here. Just these a bunch of discrete things, and somebody pulled the RAM chips out of here for something else. Probably RAM chips were expensive in those days. And but it was very simple. Video in, video out. That's it. No keying, no chroma effects, no fader. None of those things that you associate with the toaster today. But we were doing video effects with this, and it kind of started the whole revolution. And of course, all those things I just mentioned were added, and that's why it took us 3 years. But because we had to add so many things to this before it was a commercial product, it kind of gave a little burst of excitement every month, because there'd be some new major breakthrough, like, wow, we can load still stores into the toaster now, or wow, we can frame grab, or wow. Or
That's kind of what we thrive on at NewTek.
Yeah.
The next new thing will always jump into somebody's office and say, wow, let's take a look at this new thing, this new feature, and we're just constantly flying around.
Yeah, we're like, somebody will say, come in here, demo time. We'll all stare at the display and just, wow. And depending on how long we just stare at the display, it kind of relates to how cool the feature is. But in the early days, we spent a lot of time staring at the displays. And I can kind of walk around with this. It's kind of fragile because we had to wire wrap everything in those days. And that's Brad Carvey's work there, wire wrapping. But, I don't know.
We're not
I'll
worthy.
put it
we're
back
not
in the
worthy.
vault. First toaster.
That's a 3,000 toaster. Right.
Yeah.
Half card version.
It will fit
I
the
think
3,000.
I think if you take Lightwave, digitize this, and digitize the current toaster, and do morphing between them somehow, that will show you all the steps we went through. Use a real, dense frame rate on that too.
It was really exciting. I can remember at that time, before Toaster was completely finished, I was the new kid on the block, and I would hang around with them until like 3 in the morning while they were writing code. And we would all gather in Tim's office, all right, Keith, we have a new effect. And it would like, literally, I remember like the combination of a Luminance and Digital Trail, see how long we'd sit there and play with it for hours, and then, oh, well, here, wait a minute. And he'd do an adjustment, would get better, or they'd add a new feature effect to it. It was always incredibly exciting, and a lot of that is still happening now. The hardest part is, though, now, is we have to run out to the country, at least I do, and do a lot of stuff. But,
Well, you were really the first girl sort of made in the Alpha guy, so it's like, let's show it to a girl and see if she likes it. She did, so we got a winner. The market increased by 50%, right?
Saleable product then.
The last point I wanted to make about the development of the toaster was that all along the way, we had to keep asking ourselves, is this next thing we're working on even possible? I mean, that's how far we were pushing the technology and the machine and the software. And there were many routines that I wrote that I had to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and then it was good enough. And because we developed this on a 68,000 base machine, so a lot of the code was so hard to write on that machine to get the speed that we had to use other programs to help us write the programs. And but
The other thing that you also do, although we can't talk about 3.0 at all, what we've done with the toaster 1.0 and 2.0 is just the beginning. We have a lot of new things.
we'll always push the envelope and do as much as we possibly can. And now there is really a team at NewTek. There's
Yes.
many people, like myself, who are pushing the envelope and just doing cool things. So
Okay, so
I
now
guess we need to talk about the future a little bit, or what people want.
Yep. Now's your chance.
What was the hardest thing to program? Biggest
You
challenge?
would be surprised. Actually, the hardest thing to program was frame grabbing. And the frame grabbing code for frame grabbing on 68,000 was just extremely difficult. And then also the other thing, taking data, RGB data, and getting that into the format that has to be sent to the toaster was another huge piece of code. People had tried that type of code with frame buffers before, but they never got broadcast quality results, and that's what we were after. We were looking at the FCC specs and so on, and saying how does this data have to be filtered properly, and how does it, all the levels, how they have to be correct and all that stuff, so that what you get out of the toaster is broadcast quality. That was not easy.
Guys have any ideas for things you'd like to see in the future? We haven't done it already.
Positionable wipes with soft.
Yeah.
We're gonna take notes.
Yeah, we're going to take some notes. This is the first time that I've ever talked to a group of dealers. And I've been to a few shows, but usually when I go to a show, it's like I have one day to run around through the show, and then I fly back to Kansas. I don't work the shows. So a lot of product development up to this point is kind of like the cool ideas from people in TRAS, and we listen to people on the outside, but it's mostly we're focusing on how to get the job done and what can we do in this limited amount of time. Now that we've shipped 1.0 and 2.0, we're now listening more to people who are using the toaster, finding out what they need.
Right. And you guys are out there, talking to customers directly. We don't ever have that opportunity really to do that. So there's things that people are asking for, or something that made you miss a sale or get a sale or something like that, you should let us know. And I'll leave my card here as well. Part of my job at DTEC as well, to kind of take input from people.
Which modules in particular?
Which modules?
Yeah, which programs of? Are you talking about just the switcher, or are you talking about CG and toaster
Anything.
thing?
Anything.
Anything.
Any of this one.
Yeah.
Super black.
Yes.
You want to see that? I'll let that.
Scalable fonts that CG after full screen size.
He doesn't like you anymore.
They're positionable, have other shapes than the square. That's step 2. Step 3 is to be able to have our own shape. Make a wipe of some whatever shape with a polygon tool or whatever.
Master
And
Flayed to Black.
4 is with
Could
soft.
you make a body movement if any of these are in trio?
No, I've been
Got a
trying
wink
not
or
to.
something? Okay.
Are we going to put 3.0 feature list at the top of this list?
No, those are the floor plan.
Yeah.
Do you have something you wanted to add?
Master Fade to Black for the guys that want to come up from black and then do something. Also doing the things that we do with all these external software pieces like Pixel, converting a bitmap straight from, either a grab or paint or something, instead of having to convert it to the reduced color palette, then do the edge trace and stuff.
Right. One of the things that we heard is that when you guys are selling toasters, you're selling a lot of other stuff along with them too, which is good because you're making money from it and everything. But some of those features probably nice to have as part of the toaster.
We need variable in the CG. A lot of TV stations are asking for time code scroll speed. They have like 10 seconds or 15 seconds, and it needs to scroll whatever the amount in that time.
I see. It says speed rather than
Yeah.
a time versus a speed.
Right.
A programming language interface for Lightwave.
I'm sorry, did you say?
A programmable language interface for Lightwave. Mathematical object
Other
construction.
than AREX.
Yeah.
Timeline.
Actually, beyond
Yeah,
AREX,
it's beyond
more
AREX.
specific.
Like writing procedurals and things like that.
Yeah.
The timeline for Lightweight. So you would see all your keyframes and be able to move them back and forth. Stretch different areas and things like that. allowed you to change. and add
Can we just
more.
mail you a list of Lightwave upgrades?
Yeah, you should.
I'm just surprised right now.
You should, but I
Is there anywhere to make the safe frame store from Switcher fast?
Well, you know it's faster on a 68,000 than on a
Yeah.
non-68,000.
Why
So I-
exactly is that? That was my biggest question.
Why is that? One piece of code is general code, another one is optimized code. The general code is one that works on any
Oh.
processor, and that's not as fast.
It's optimized for 68,000.
Yes.
What about the control of external banks? For complete A, B, C roll, et cetera, et cetera. Plus sound.
Yeah,
the
an
audio.
audio toaster.
An audio,
Audio
toaster,
toaster, yeah.
yeah, if you guys have ideas for products.
As a daughter board.
Just a field.
Now, these things you guys want for yourself or your customers want to buy?
This is
Oh, for
the
ourselves
world,
first.
for the
Okay,
world.
good, good, just wanna make sure.
Real-time paint.
Yeah.
Yes,
Come on.
a whole new paint program.
Yeah.
When we
Based
spoke
upon
about
artistic.
variable softness, the softness of the border, variable, and also the borders, different thickness. The alpha
Preset.
channel would also.
You could just say programmable effects, and that would cover a big area.
Wow.
There you go.
No, I can't ask you that right away.
Yeah.
But
See, you're
I'm
leaving
about
your
to.
Well, he could say it in French, but it was.
Preset colors for the animated effect, other than black.
Yeah, have a request
change
for the
the
backgrounds, go with RGB values. Instead of having the presets, be able to change them like you change the chroma effects. You can go in and say, well, this is 255 and 120, whatever.
What about reduced rendering time? So when you're gonna render something, you know that the background is gonna stay solid because you're gonna map that over top of something else. So all you really wanna do is render that object, so as a standard black. I know that it does render faster with a standard black, but still it should only be rendering the one object and not top to bottom. Real-time animation playback?
I'm sorry, real-time animation playback?
Yeah. Even if it's a trick.
What, even if it's not real-time? Is that what
Well,
you're
no,
saying?
like DCTV type
Add
of thing.
another layer.
We have customers that would like to see visualization software, that data acquisition and mathematical models to visualization, so that we can trash their entire wavefront software.
That's not-
Because that's the only part they're still using in some of the suites.
What about a full screen, lightweight screen for the playback on the render?
I don't understand.
Just a full screen as opposed to the compressed screen,
Oh, I see.
instead of using the grid
Or some
overlay.
thing that can easily be done within Lightwave when we render all the frames, have utility software to compress everything in half and see it in half instead of having to duplicate. I know we can already do it, but this utility is
Or automated
customers
JPEG
don't have
compression.
time to go pick it up.
Whenever it saves frames out, automated JPEG compression.
Input.
Yeah.
Both ways.
The ability in Paint to bring a Lightwave object in and rotate it, size it, position it, and drop it right in. Just position it and wireframe it and render it right
Why
in the
not
spot
use
where you want it.
structured graphic on top of it?
So you can actually just bring in a Lightwave object, highlight whatever, and quick render it in Paint.
Without saving it.
Need a spell checker with CG.
That's a dumb idea.
D-U-M, dumb.
They have a cool thing, the power gloves of Nintendo, there must be a use of those things. Why not model
Break
with
with
them?
Nintendo's.
There already is.
Yeah, there is.
I can give you code for it. Parallel
Model
forward.
What would you want to do with it? Just curious.
Well, you start with a cube and you punch it, and then you shape it and you make sushi out of it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Instead of a mouse, you've got a
We
power
brought this
glove.
up last night too.
So you pull the wipes down.
Daniel?
tablet
Like a
support.
surface texture preview kind of a window in Lightwave?
Yes.
Oh, I got a really.
You work for NewTek.
Yeah, you're cheating.
No.
You tell me
Exactly.
anytime.
I told him what to
I can tell
say.
you anytime, right, what am I thinking? How come? I never get to see you though, so.
We've been telling him stuff at dinner though, so you know.
Really?
Come on, James, tell him the next one, come on.
I got one question. Why in Lightwave does it always default to the position of whatever it is as a backwards view for some reason? Whenever the objects are loaded, they're always loaded from the reverse.
The mouse move. Or maybe, you know, within Lightwave, sometimes you work backwards.
You always start off with a back view and side view.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
when
load
your
it
mom-
layout
when you
comes
It
from
always
the front
starts
view.
off with the object facing the other way, and also there's a little optical trick with the light. You don't know whether it's facing the object because it loses the box, and you're sort of wondering,
Right.
well, am I facing the right way with that light, or is it facing the camera?
So it wasn't see-through if it actually had sides to it.
Or
The
colored
light, so you can
flaps.
see through it, so you'd see which corner you see. Make it a
Or
little
colored
clearer.
flaps,
rays.
or put lines on the flaps that
Those are
point to
The
where
rays
the
are
light
coming.
is.
When we load a texture, or we
We were at
position
the
it
right
on an
table.
object,
Yeah.
have
Hey,
much
how
like
about
a soft
rays of
flash
light
stuff.
coming from it?
When you load the texture, you can actually see it in the compressed version, and you know what you're loading. And I think they're using a sphere. When you change its size, you can actually see it on the object. Sometimes you think that's the right texture you wanted, but oops,
That's like the surface.
that's the wrong one I wanted. It's like, what?
Yeah, that's,
Like a
that's part of
surface
the show.
editor, so you can change the size and see it.
What about a dance hall ball light, you know?
That's easy enough.
How about
You know, just
Make
something
one
like
of
this.
your
a user selectable window in Lightwave so that you can pick just part of the screen and render it out, just so you can test the lighting or placement.
Partial
just
rendering.
Partial.
How about a mod or a,
Couldn't think.
how about a non-moving solid preview on Convo?
Or a shaded one.
Yeah, yeah.
So it,
How about a screen where you could go and look at all your frame stores as a little pie cut?
yeah,
You could look
much
at
like
40,
the,
40 frame
ESS,
stores
yeah.
and pie cuts.
What about a parent request? Oh, they
There's
got
a
it.
ESS3 by MPEX. It's a frame store device that TV stations use, and these see their paths. So all the images are compressed with a number. Then it's all Brian Mulroney or whatever, punch the number, it comes up. It's probably what it's.
Licensed technology?
The ability to model and the layouts for the graphic
Yeah.
vertex a little bit with the.
Sounds like they want more than just that grid of effects and 2 new fonts for 3.0.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Who's gonna have a
Yeah.
Of course, you
Six
realize
months,
when it's delayed, they're gonna blame all of us.
You're gonna go to 16 guys from Masters, yell at those
So
guys.
Scott
right.
might have to leave now and go.
Yeah. Call Alan.
You got 6 months to do it, right?
25 feet to the door, I don't know if you'd make it.
Alpha channel and
I know.
Why not on everything?
alpha channel and everything.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think it's being self-promotional.
Yeah,
right.
Not we want omni-channel too.
What do you want for Christmas, little boy?
Multiple fonts on CG line, multiple
Yes,
colors on
yes,
CG
sure.
line.
So yeah, Nick was trying to suggest how you should sell a toaster.
This is how products start nowadays, is with a huge feature list.
Yeah.
And we have to keep track of these things on our Macs because it's,
Yeah.
we have all kinds of ways of filing all the ideas once it's been worked on, once it's been beta tested, and all these, and then finally when the list gets down this big, we ship.
Oh. So this is gonna add a few days.
Well, you can send probably, is that probably about enough for now? We'll,
Yeah.
get working on these.
Something real stupid, support for the conventional key map, you know, with the dead keys. So we could use the actual standard key map, alternate F for axes and things like that.
Doesn't work, huh?
No,
I got
Didn't
one.
know about that.
I didn't even try that.
why it doesn't work.
A font editor for CG. So you can say left characters out, you could go and put special characters in yourself.
I see.
It's the font for
That's a great product. it's interesting because we get an opportunity sometimes to go to shows and really see other products and all that. We do make a point to see what the competition is doing, or supposed competition is doing, and see what all the new things out there on the high end too. I mean, we went to SIGGRAPH and saw saw Kamaj and all these high end products. We were really favorably impressed with the way our products are going compared with those. And it's really interesting because we don't a lot of times get a chance to really hear about what sells a product. I mean, when you guys sell a toaster, what is it about the toaster in general? You guys have ideas about what really sells it to people?
Chromatex.
You already
Yeah,
do
Chroma
that.
effects.
What, I mean, you guys have some ideas here. I mean, I'm just curious, but what when you make a sale, it's like, wow, I sold this because of
solar
X.
Newcomb one.
What's usually the answer?
I
What's
think
the
the
hot-
toaster is like, it's like everybody's a kid inside of them. You show them this and everybody wants to start their own company. They don't see how much things they can do with it. So I think every aspect of it sells a product.
I mean, I think that's that's interesting because that is a kind of a philosophy. I think it's one of the reasons why sheep is still in there is because you may never use sheep, but at the same time, it kind of shows you this is fun. It's a really fun box. It's really fun to play with, and we actually still quite fun with it too. We don't get enough time. But as a matter of fact, I really wish I'd been in that session. It's great. Okay, well we're gonna wrap
What
it up.
about half-height Kermit on CG, so that we can turn them down, like what John was talking about, trying to do the formulas for NASA
Right.
or whatever.
Superscript.
Like have attributes per letter instead of per line.
Yeah.
Color, font size.
CG transitions to where you put in one line and text down at the top.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's,
Like
something
typing on or whatever.
Yeah,
well
like the
done
bullet
and
points.
quick, be able to enter it in a cut. The CG instead of having it, when you load it, it fades in all the time. You might want to have it cut in.
You can do it currently.
Yeah, you
do that.
click on the.
Cut in?
Yeah.
Not with the alpha channel and everything.
When you render it and you've got it flashing in the overlay buffer, on the overlay bus, click right on that flashing button.
Yeah.
It'll take right there,
Right on.
right over your program source.
yeah, that's right on.
Test that
Stefan.
again.
A layout editor for
Jeez, I
CG.
used the space
There's-
bar.
Hey, who was gonna authorize him anyway?
Yes, I do it, right?
How much do you charge?
Think about
Manual
having flawed,
anymore?
right?
I do it. But I hope it works.
What
Okay,
about
well, you
combination effects? Sorry, more combination
Really?
effects to effects, and CG
Another
to
layer or
effects,
something.
like the flying CGs are sellers. I mean, they're real sellers, because corporate guys just eat them up.
Really?
Yeah, because they walk in 2 seconds, you can type up their business card and have it just fly in over top of the background of the company building or something.
We need something like a real key out.
External.
And the layout editor for CGs, create the bulk layouts. You can make an advertisement with text always go to the same place.
And just make sure.
Hey,
Yeah,
you
we're
route
saving
what you
it,
put
Really small writing.
Is there a way of making the saving on the CG project books a lot simpler?
That's
Well,
what we
like a
said,
lot more.
save
How
the
about
book
the
within
ability
the
to save it
CG.
from the CG?
Load a book
Oh,
within the
stereo.
CG. To be able to save the book inside the CG
That's
and
just
load
an
it.
interface issue.
Yeah.
It's a technical reason, so.
Well, we're asking you simple.
We're asking the interface designer.
Sounds like a good suggestion.
Just to save the book from the.
Oh, okay. I got that already.
Well, write it down again.
It's a backup copy.
How about all the flashing that goes on when you're taking motion out of frames, when you're.
You don't like that?
saving frames? I guess
like
that's.
that.
I
It's a
guess-
feature, it's a feature, right? It's a
Okay.
feature.
Subliminal says toaster good.
Replace that by
The-
toaster.
That's a large discussion during demo. It's just, why is it flashing? What happened? Did it break? No, this is natural.
It's a feature,
Oh,
right?
Okay, yeah.
I
this
know
is
it's
one
still
of those
working
features.
by flashing, so I'm happy with
It's
it.
like the
Yeah.
grunting sound on the NVIDIA disk
Put
drive
like
was
back
engineered in.
What? Yeah.
Also.
Just make it so it can instantly freeze.
Whoa.
Remember when he said the toughest
Can you
thing was
elevate
spring
yourself,
riding?
Jay? Instantly?
Just turn off your monitor when you do that.
Instead of
Quick
doing
fix
everything,
2.0.
put some routine that shuts off the power to the monitor and lights it back right after. That would be simpler.
Yeah, what about the flicking,
Then people will think,
with regards
God, it
to
broke
the
my monitor though.
The monitor
You'll get
flashing,
everything.
like
Service
if you're
though.
loading from DV1
Yeah,
to DV2.
unfortunately, that's part of the design of the toaster. We can't get rid of all of that flashing. That's one of the things that made the toaster possible, actually. And, it's an unfortunate side effect of the design, but
The flashing of the program monitor or the flashing of the?
just on the Amiga monitor. Were you speaking about
No,
program monitor?
on the
Well-
program monitor, we were talking about it before, is that
Ah.
when you've loaded, DV1 and then you're gonna switch and load a DV2 and then switch it afterwards, as DV2 is being loaded, it's.
The other way.
You have to
Yeah,
talk
you
to the
can
tech
see it
support
on
people
my
about
phone.
that. Yeah, that sounds like a problem with the toaster.
I think it's
If-
1.0.
And also the flash when you enter CG on program, there's a slight flash of the program output.
Like,
There's a level change in the program output whenever you enter CG. And there are some people that want to be able to.
You'll have to talk to tech support on that one thing, because if there's problems like that, I'm not aware of that particular one. They might have to show us product development, we'll see what we do about it. It's like I have to see those kinds of things.
Yeah,
before I
that's
make a
fine.
judgment on that.
I
What
forgot
about
yesterday, I
the-
told them, but my manual auto, so I have a manual one, and it needs to control the chroma level.
Preferably with a straw. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I
built
can't.
in, built in. I don't know if it would have to be a hardware thing, it could be
Yeah,
software,
maybe.
if that's possible.
Yeah,
Would
software.
there be a way of saving the fonts to the particular project, so that when you change project, it changes that list of fonts, like the default fonts or whatever that you've loaded for that project? Because when you erase them or whatever, and then you load another project, it's got those other fonts. And if it doesn't find the font that it was originally assigned, it goes back to the default of that common thing or whatever. So.
Well, the font list is saved with the project, it's when you change a
It's when you-
page within a project,
Yeah.
it will change the other pages in that project. That, say page 10 has BAMP, and then you
Yeah, but
change it on that
supposing
page,
you've got
and
a
you have
project
BAMP on
where
page
you wanna
60,
use more than
change
20
it.
fonts, well, then
Yeah,
you're
more than
stuck.
20 fonts, maybe 30, 40 fonts, maybe more.
I've never seen 20 fonts being a problem, though, as
Why
long as
are
you're aware
some
of what
of
does
things
it.
offset? You know, like,
Where the center is.
the
in the
cross,
center.
the center is in the center?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
just probably, we can probably tweak some of those future versions.
Just move over a little bit.
Yeah.
It'll take your horizontal position.
We're
of
gonna
the
have to
monitor.
close the formal part of this down, because these guys aren't used to talking to people a lot.
You're not gonna
Sorry,
say,
guys.
We're gonna go up to our rooms and we're gonna be looking at this list and we'll be going, oh my God, look what they gave us.
They said you were gonna give us the
And
answers
we'll-
tomorrow by
yeah,
Zoom.
we'll come back.
It's like, this is great though, you guys are really interested in seeing the product, and that makes us feel good. I mean, you just kinda said, well, no, I guess it's okay. and then kinda
We'll
worry.
come back in about another year and say, we
Appreciate
need
it.
another list.
Yeah.
You guys are great.
Daniel?
Thanks.
Great, but
M&M's?
I'll try to hang around here
Now I
a
have
little bit if
twins.
anybody has any questions about
If
new
you
tech
mix
or
it,
anything.
tell them apart.
No.
I never heard of 3.0, by the way.
How about 2.5?
Well, we have kind of a special thing that if you want to hang around for a little bit, this is kind of a deep, dark secret thing. But I don't know if you're all interested or not. But we do have a version of Lightweight Professional that Alan Hastings just sent us on the modem about an hour ago. It was compiled today with the latest features in it. And we don't want to see it. You guys can probably go to the bar out of here and relax. So this is software not shown before, and so it's highly secret. So we're gonna have to turn the camera off and lock the door and blindfold everybody.
Yeah, they're on the piece of paper right there.
So we don't sell them because I don't know how to use them.
get anyone to show me.
Oh, Directory Opus, quarterback,
We'll train you.
cross DOS.
See what I get?
Yeah, let it.
Refer to the same.
Bill me later.
I wish you guys turned flat that way.
That's on a mile. 21 cents a mile.
By the mile.
Well, I think Disneyland, that's very fun, one of those fun places.
Really? Even I'll show you around.
Well, you know what? Occurred to me. What I'm gonna show today is I'm gonna start out with Toaster Toolkit. The reason I'm starting out with Toaster Toolkit is because one of the projects you're gonna be doing is putting together a Toaster Toolkit show. And, so I figure, for those of you who know how to use it, a nice refresher for those of you who have never used it before, this will save time when you get into doing it. Now, I notice we don't have a monitor up there, so I'm going to just,
They must have switched it because they did have the interface up on one of them.
Switch so that the monitor nearest you would say interface monitor.
They did.
Yeah.
Did they inform any of you how they did that?
Mono out.
Mono out of the 2000, I'd imagine, but I don't know if they.
Probably, yes.
It was cloak and secrecy.
Aha, yes, they even have a TVC there.
There it is.
So what happened, oh, I got that black. First, I'm gonna go into the Toaster Toolkit. Yesterday, I had no trouble installing the Toaster Toolkit. Today, I had trouble on this machine, and I've had trouble before on installing Toaster Toolkit. So you may want to read the instructions again on how to do that. The earlier versions of Toaster Toolkit, they named the disk badly. So it was looking for disk call, I think TSE, and it was named Toaster Toolkit. So the install script wouldn't install the original script, it had to rename the disk in order to use the install script.
Who is the maker of Toaster Toolkit?
A company called the Byte Factory.
The Byte Factory?
The Byte Factory.
And
So
real
I went
helpful.
back after New Tech U and couldn't find it in any of my
Just
Pass
call
this
up,
supply list.
just call up Micropace or American Software.
Oh, okay, and ask
As a
for
matter of
direct-
fact, I chewed out Bill Kavanaugh for not telling me about it.
Yeah.
Because I said, tell me anything that works with the toaster.
Yeah.
Anything you know, anything that's new, tell me
Exactly.
about it, if it
First-
has to do with the toaster.
Yeah, the
And I
first
called
one
him up
you
and I
know
chewed him
about.
out. I said, what about this? It's so powerful. You never mentioned a word about it.
And he had it,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
It's not in the catalog though.
Not yet.
No, Michael.
It's too new.
No, it
Well,
isn't.
let me
That
tell
was
you
my
about
problem.
the 4 parts of the Toaster Toolkit. First of all, we have a frame store compressor. If you turn this on, this has 2 nice parts. One, if you turn on compress or snoop, it will just go through and compress all your frame stores. With snoop, I believe it's the snoop one, as you, every 30 seconds, every 60 seconds, every 2 or 3 minutes, it will look to see if you've saved any of the frame stores and compress them automatically.
Wow.
Black and white view is a really nice feature where you can take any frame store. We're on keyboard here.
Huh.
Keyboard in, keyboard.
I can take any frame store, click on it once, click on black and white view, and it shows me a black and white picture of it. You can also take the black and white view has a CLI command, so you can call that up from the CLI. You don't need to use the Toaster Toolkit to do that.
What, compress as in proprietary form or JPEG or how?
No, I don't know what form.
In
they use.
Nutex natural compression.
I think they just do that. I think that's what they use.
Because if you save something from Toaster Paint, it uses Nutex natural compression, but if you save it from the switcher, it doesn't compress it.
Really? I was just thinking, in that situation, it doesn't, the toaster compress the frame, but it saves it anyway.
Only in Lightwave
Lightwave or toaster paint, but not from the switcher. All switcher frame stores that you save are raw.
Cool. When we went through and did our frame store that way, I think we had 70 megabytes worth of frame stores.
Yeah.
And some of them, of course, were compressed before because we did it that way, but it cut it down to 50, which is significant. And it will only do it on 2.0 frame stores. So if you have a 1.3 frame store, you have to resave, you have to call it up and resave it as a 2.0 frame store. The other software, can you close the door for me? Another nice feature is the AnimFX, which what it will do is it will take any I won't say any D-Paint animation, but it will take a deluxe paint animation and convert it into a white. And I'll show you how that works in a little bit. I did my first one last night, so if I'm a little slow doing my second one, that's just forgive me. The project editor, I'll go into the project editor for right now. And let's load a catalog. What that allows you to do is to build your own projects, your own screens here, to reorder them the way you want to. So I could take, for instance, this effect and put it right here. If I click on swap, now what it does is it leaves it there. So I can, when we first got this in here, and you guys may want to try this if you have anybody that doesn't know about this doing editing. When we first got this in, we went into our editing suite and put sheep effect on all the videos. It was fun. The other thing you can do is click on the macro FX. Now here, notice there's a command, a script, an AREX, and a sequence effect. I could take this and we use command right now. I put it in here. And maybe right here, my effect name might be Directory Opus, let's say.
I didn't type it. Get that keyboard out of there.
Okay, there's my command effect. Now, I can take this, when I click on croutons now, what I can do is I can save this crouton as a brush, and then make my own brush to put into that place. Now the one thing you have to be careful about that is it has to be exactly this size. Anything that's not that size you just cut out. So the easiest thing to do is just to save this crouton and then modify it, and then you'll have it the right size. So I can make a brush of my own now, and I didn't type in what my command is, did I? Now in here I put my command, so my command might be, well, I'm not going to type it in, but I can make a command that will take me directly to Directory Opus, or one that will call up Deluxe Paint and bring me to the front, or Pixel 3D. So you can put a series, or open up Directory Opus, take you right to the frame store directory. So if somebody has to do some copying or deleting, click on that button, takes you right there. Very nice. You can also call up sequences from here. You can call up AREX commands. So say you wanted to, well, I haven't tried this, so I shouldn't say you could do this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So supposedly just by clicking on here, you should be able to emboss a frame store that you have loaded into your paint program. You can also change the rates here. The rate at which, so let's bring up the smooth fade here and double click on it. Now I can go slow, medium, or fast here, but I can also go here. Now notice the speeds. Can you see those numbers on that screen? Anyway, the speed right now, these are field rates, not frame rates. One of the things that the manual does as you go through it, they confuse fields and frames. So for instance, it says it takes 60 frames. There are 60 frames in a second. So you have to be a little careful of that. But these are frame rates. So this particular fade would take 75 frames, 75 fields conduits to do the fade. I can change that to 150 fields. So now we have a longer fade, a slower fade. And let's quit out of here. If you have any questions, stop me. I'm going to go through that part pretty fast. Now the sequence editor, one thing it will do is it will create icons for your sequences. So all you need to do later on is double click on them. Calls up a requester asking you which project you want to load. You can go into your into the icon and change in the info file on it to default, and it will skip that part and automatically load up the last project you had loaded in.
When you get a chance, could you show an example of how you can make one of those icons going into Framestore directory or what you were just talking about a few minutes ago?
Okay.
The TX or whatever.
Now, how easy is it to see that screen from back there?
The little stuff is a little hard, but I think we'll be okay.
Okay. Now here we have our main directory, and notice we have all the icons up there. First thing I want to do is I want to go to my program monitor. PM stands for program, PV for preview, and OV for overlay. And I want to set my background to black. Now normally another thing you want to do if it's going to be a project you're going to use over and over again, you probably will want to start out loading in the project that you're going to use. So you'll make sure you have the right frame stores, make sure that you have the right book and the right scripts. So now I've loaded my project into here, now I'm going to load a frame store. One thing to be very careful with, if you double click on the frame store load, it will lock it up. I probably shouldn't have told you that, you probably never have found out, but since I found
Even
that
on the
out,
new
it
version
locked
you
me
got
up.
yesterday, or is that when the problem showed up?
I was doing it with the earlier versions all the time, and I tried it on the version I had yesterday, this one, and
And
it
it
locked
still
up
does.
again.
It's loading?
What? No, it hasn't started loading yet.
No, okay.
So what was the question?
You might be able to, by increasing the stack to about 30,000, 40,000,
That might do it.
Might do it. It's usually in I/O operations that locks up, it's usually the stack.
Maybe it'd be a good idea to change the info file on that, but I hadn't thought of that. Now I've got my frame stores here. And let's call up Ramona Lisa to begin with. I can just double click on it if I want to. I can preview it with their loader just to see what it is. And now notice it puts frame load, it puts the number in here for me. And it also puts the directory where I've got the frame store. Now I click on my special effect. Now I can double click on it. I can click on plus, and then I click on auto. I click on auto down here, and now I've done my first effect here. Click on that doesn't load my frame store. That's why.
Not right now.
Remember what I said, you should load the project first of all? Reload system 2.0 in here. The problem with loading a project first of all is at the beginning of every script you're going to run, it takes, 2-3 seconds to load that project in. And I get a little impatient. One of the things I don't like about this is in terms of customers using it. The script line is kind of confusing. What does FMDLV stand for? What does, what are all these different words they have here? So in other words, when a customer looks at this, what does MBKG stand for? What does FSDB stand for? So in other words, you almost have to teach them what AREX is in order for them to look at a script and understand what it says. So it may be something you have to look at your customers. So it puts black into the screen and it does my effect for them.
Can you briefly tell us what that stuff means?
Okay, MBKVG, below, M stands for program. So it puts the background, your background into the program. FSDB is frame store, where they find, that's for where they find the frame store, the directory for the frame store is on DHZ. Frame load, FMLD, frame load, and then the number of the frame store. Grid is, we're on page A and 3 down, 6 over, A36, that's the grid number. Fast is the speed I'm doing it, and auto means like getting the space bar.
It automatically puts all that in there, so you don't have to type it in.
You
You
don't
just
have to
says,
type
you
it
click
in,
on
but-
things, it codes it into AREX and just shows you what it's writing.
Yeah, the problem is when you go back to when somebody calls up and says, my script isn't working, you have to know what most of these things mean. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna load in another frame store. And let's go for the Mona Kiki this time. I'll just double click on that and we'll do that. Now, there's a button down here that says plus auto. If I have this set, then as soon as I pick an effect, and this time I'll pick a fade, it automatically puts the auto in for me. If you don't have this on, then you have to click on auto yourself. So now we have this other fade. Now I'm going to put a weight in here. Now for the weight, you can do it by the number of frames, and you can reset at the beginning of frame. At the beginning of your script, you can set the frames to 0, and then it'll wait till it gets the frame number. And at each frame again is 1/60th of a second, remember, instead of 1/30th of a second. The way they do it. So you can do it by number of frames. You can do a GPI trigger, so you can stick a GPI into the second mouse port, and then it'll wait until you click on that GPI to go to the next one. Really nice for setting up slideshows, so you can sit and describe what's happening and then go on from there. Time is either relative or absolute. Relative is usually what you want to do, and I'm going to do, and this is not frames, this is seconds. Okay? I thought this was frames and this was seconds, so I had a 3-minute wait between the first time I did it. So this is hours, minutes, and seconds here, not frames. And so this would be relative. Absolute means now it wouldn't show that frame till what, 3:30 and 22 seconds. So it goes by the hours of the day for absolute, and relative is just, it starts counting from the last, it waits 3 seconds and lets the next effect. So if you want a script to start every morning at 8 o'clock when you're about to get to work, you can set it on relative, and it would come on every morning at 8 o'clock and start playing. And then you could have it so it would go all day long. So I'm going to do a 3-second wait here. So now it's going to wait for 3 seconds, and then it's going to load in. Then I'm going to put in, now this one is for my script, and I'll just do frame store CG page number 1. And it's very easy to click on auto. Again, wait for 3 seconds, and fade it out again with another auto. And let's see what the script looks like now. That should fade in, fade the other key, wait 3 seconds. Put my title up here, and wait 3 seconds, and then fade it out. And we have our script. Other things you can do, you can set it to freeze things automatically. So for instance, let's say you had 60 pictures you wanted to freeze. I haven't done any of the freezes, but you can set it up so that your copy stand camera's here, your freeze is here, you put maybe a 5-10 second wait between each thing. So you just stick it underneath there and line it up, it'll freeze it, save it, and up here we have the save the frame store, and you save it with the name and everything else, 4 fields, 1 field. So you could save it if save 60 pictures every 10 seconds, and all you need to do is stick it underneath there and wait for it to work.
It's also cool for time lapse for like clouds or whatever else, have
Uh-huh.
kind of point in the sky. To me, that makes it incredible stuff.
Yeah, point your camera outside.
Flowers or whatever else, and go from this.
Over here, we have the ability to change the color of the border. Here, the ability to change the color of the background.
What was that custom up there? Is that?
The what?
It had a custom area too, under.
Oh, supposedly, you could type in a number, any number between 0 and 496, so let's do that.
Yeah, supposedly you're supposed to be able to use any RGB background color.
Let's try it out. Except notice it's ghosted. As these 8. So let's put that in here. Okay, MKG background, click on custom, click on OK, and now there's my background color. And let's erase this one. Now let's see what it looks like. Did it just skip over that? Oh, that's set the background color.
Escape out of the script.
You can escape out of a script by holding down the right Alt and hitting delete. There's our color. So,
It flashed by, it's flashed too, didn't it?
what was that?
It flashed too when the frame still was low.
Yeah, there's
So weird.
a number of machines do that, a number of them don't. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. You can set clip levels, the T-bar levels, so for instance, let's say you wanted to do the old film effect, then you can set that to do that for 30 seconds. Go into miscellaneous. You can go to the workbench, you can go to switcher, you can choose the directories where you're going to do frame stores. You can quit. You can do no effect for whatever reason you want to. And here's where you set the duration of the effect. And that's important again for when you're working with the film effect. And the user is what this will allow you to do is enter just a switcher command yourself and the arguments you want to use with it. Question mark gives you the frame store number. This allows you to enter a comment for an AREX script. Output allows you to do a CLI command of some sort, or an AREX command, or call other scripts you've already written, so you can chain scripts together. You can also send commands to the serial port, or send commands to a GPI trigger. And there's where you put it here. Or have it talk to you. So we don't have anything of this hooked up now. I won't bother with that. The loop, again, looping is nice. You can do 10 loops, 20 loops. You can do the number of loops you want, or you can set a time for the loop. And again, the time can be relative or absolute. So you can have your script set to start working at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then loop till 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
So it goes on the internal clock of the Amiga, and
Yes.
just turns on the power, or you have to have the Amiga on?
You'd have to have the, we wish you could turn on the power, that would be nice.
Okay, so the Amiga has to stay on, so like for a cable station or something like that?
For a cable station, it's really nice, because you could set it to come on at
So it could be totally in Workbench?
Yeah, totally in Workbench.
And at 8 o'clock, it would start running this whole program.
And it would run it for an hour, and then.
Could it
go
run
on
one
for-
script for an hour and then run another script for a couple hours and then go back and run another script, or?
You do that by chaining your things together and putting the weight command in. So
Okay.
it'd go through and then you put your weight in here, and you do an absolute time here. And so maybe you'd have it wait till 8 o'clock in the morning. So now this next event would happen at 8:37, 52 seconds. So it's really nice for cable station where they have some titles that have to come up at a certain time. Or,
Well, just to, like, for instance, my cable station has personals, personal ads.
yes,
So,
perfect for that.
yeah.
And, yeah, it's just nice for so many different applications.
They have personals that run on the cable channel?
Yeah, single
With
people.
pictures of the people, or? What if,
Yeah.
So one of the problems.
that would not go over well here, I don't think.
Oh, it's LA.
That's Hollywood, you know?
Oh, is that, okay, yeah, you're close to Hollywood. People are not that,
Well,
what the
they
word
don't
here
put up
is.
their phone number, all they do is put up their name and a number,
Okay,
to
question is how
reference.
accurate is it? When we're talking about the absolute things, it's as accurate as your computer is, okay? So it'll begin right at the right time to the second, very precisely. However, once you're into the script, I don't think it's going to be very precise, because how precise can we be with how long the frame stores take to load? I don't know. Do the frame stores always take exactly the same amount of time to load? And does each frame store take the same amount of time to load, or some take a little bit longer? So once you're into a script, I would be very hesitant to say that this is gonna be up here for exactly 30 seconds and then go on to the next one. And again, with that, when you're using the wait command, if it's set the relative wait for 3 seconds, it's going to wait those 3 seconds, and that will be precise. But if it's taking 2 seconds to load, plus the 3 seconds, then it's going to be 5 seconds. So you're not going to be quite as precise. If you're working with absolute time, and let's say it's supposed to begin right at X time, but you've done a frame store and it took the frame store a little bit too long to load, and you pass the absolute time, then it will just skip that event in the sequence. So when you're using absolute time, it's exactly precise, but the fudge factor is how long does it take a frame store to load. It takes 2 seconds to load. If it always takes the same amount of time with the same machine and the same frame store, then you could set it up and time it just perfectly. But I've never had a stopwatch accurate enough to figure out, are the frame stores precise in their loading time, and are they the same every time? My guess is if you have the same machine, same frame store, and doing the same thing, it will be the same amount of time each time. But this machine is probably going to load different than this machine, and this frame store is different than that frame store. So that's where the fudge factor comes in. The broom is, erases everything. The eye plays the script, or if you want to just play from a certain point, you can click on here, and now it should does just that effect, and from that point it does everything. Any more questions about this?
I'd like to see just quickly how you set the clip level,
Okay.
and load up frame store at clip level.
Okay, let me start off by saying I've had trouble with 2.0 loading, doing clip levels from AREX scripts. Okay, so I'm prefacing this by that. Let's find a picture. I think we have one. Had one called. Let me just make something.
Nice star.
What?
I said nice star.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Stars are my specialty. She was very pretty.
Did you know that was gonna come up yellow or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we want to do it right. That clip up will 113. So let us set a clip level. We'll put in a load in that star, which is 700. And put it in P1. And set my clip level at black. And the level at 93. There we go. And let's try it. Yeah, did that work?
Yep.
Just put in a timer here. And let's do the whole thing. So it sets my odd color. Did it not do my clip level that time, or did it?
I didn't see it.
Oh, you know what's happening here is one of the, I haven't set, I don't know where that star is gonna load in. So it probably loaded into DB2 instead of DB1, which is where I set my flip level at. So to get my, to get it so it loads into the correct one, I imagine I would have to click on DB1
Do we think maybe that's enough for us to get an idea of what it does though? I'd rather see some other stuff than.
I'm gonna need to do it later, but I'll do it later.
Yeah, the problem, I should have put it into DB two because the frame, the text loaded into DB one. So I should have put my clip into DB two, then it would show up. And that's why when I go past the text and show the script from there, it shows up. If I do it before, it does.
Can you go in and manually edit the?
Yes, to manually edit it, it's a little confusing. You have to click on the one you want to put something in. So for instance, up here where I have where I've done my loading, here, for instance, I want to erase that, I click on it and do that. And now I want to do my frame load, I want to have my overlay as DB2 instead. First of all, you have to add it in. So I'm going to click on DB2 for my overlay. And now that's still highlighted and I click on minus to take it away. So in other words, you have to, when you want to insert something, you have to highlight where you want it inserted and then add it. And what's confusing is it's very easy to forget to highlight it the next time, so you keep adding things in the same place. So let's try this one more time. Does that give you the idea? Any more questions?
Do you have T-Rex Pro available?
T-Rex Pro, not on this one.
Are they on, is it on any machines there?
It probably is on the machines John is using.
Okay, so I feel a lot more comfortable with that. I don't need any special features that this
Right.
movies.
Yeah, T-Rex, I believe it's on the machines we have.
I seen the icon for it. I didn't see anybody run it, but I seen the
Okay.
icon for it. So.
We have it on the machines in our edit suites. Yeah, it's on at least one of the machines here.
That's okay, yeah.
And it's on this machine here.
I'll play with this or I'll find it. I think it is on our machine.
Can you,
It is on this
It's
one.
on our machine,
It's on
okay,
the
I'll
total.
just use off that.
Yeah.
can you go into, that special icon you were talking about earlier, remember? To, I guess to click on that particular button, it would bring you into, automatically into Paint or something like that?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Show us how to do it.
Toaster project editor. So let's drag that up there, double click on it. Now we have our command here. And
What would be the most common thing you would do with it?
what was that?
What would be the most common thing you would do with it?
I would say call up directory opus for us.
Or Pixel 3D or Art Department, D-Paint, anything like that that should save you some time.
Work. Does anybody remember the command, the CLI command to go to directory opus?
It's the full name.
It is the full name?
Yeah.
And now let's test it. No. There we go. So now we've created the button, and now it's a matter of saving this button in our script here. Now let's bring it back down here again and load a project. And let's load Get Small, 'cause that's great. And now we have this button over here, and we save this as project number 777. back to the screen here, I'll have to load in that project that we just saved.
So you could actually do that, I guess, if all of your extra software, you just.
And now it directly opens.
Yeah, instead of do the key combination, you get back to workbench, you just run everything.
Just click on it. When you put here, there's a little button it puts on the screen for return to switcher.
And when you click on the effects tab, it shows you the name.
Yeah, I didn't make a brush, but you make a brush exactly that size and it tells you, asks you which brush to use. So you can put whatever pictures you want to there.
So if you click on that now, it'll just automatically go.
Yeah, it's already selected, so it'll automatically go there. Imagine if I hit the space bar. No, space bar doesn't take me there. Space bar does take me there, like you do on the effect.
Wow.
Now the next thing is, you want to see how to do your own animated wipe.
Yes.
Okay, so do your animated wipe. The first thing to do is the program comes with a template. So just load up the Lux Paint and go into high res, and then it happens to be it'll be in the toaster drawer. This is where we put it anyway. Toaster drawer and then in the toolkit drawer, and then in the AnimFX drawer, there's the AnimFX template. So I load that up, and yes, I want to change the format. Now here's my template here. It takes whatever I have in this box, whatever animation I have in this box, and converts it into an animated wipe. What I have up here will be what the icon will look like. Whatever's on the first frame of your animation in this box will be what the icon looks like. My first color, the black color right at the top, that color isn't being used for anything, won't be used for anything. The second color is the outgoing program, the third is the incoming program, and the fourth color is the color of the wipe. So let's go for something simple here.
Now this is in the newest version, right?
This is the newest version.
Joe, is that black then, color zero, or what is?
What was that?
Is that black color zero?
The black is the color 0. And seeing as how, oops. There we go. Seeing as how it's so good at the start before. Speed this up here. Okay. Okay, so now I have a star. Let's set my animation. Let's do a 1-second animation here. And you don't have to worry what you put in here. It will automatically ignore that. It just takes what's through here. So I'll set this right there for now. And do my move requester. We'll tumble it around. And we'll move it across. About 400 feet.
Is this only?
Oh, you wanna know what, that's the last place you put down your brush.
Oh, that's
Remember when
right.
you hit
Yeah.
the right mouse button by accident?
Is this with D-Paint 3 and 4? Or
Yeah, well, it'll take any D-Paint animation. Okay, we'll use that. I'll draw that across the screen now. wanna do is the place where we want the video to change. We'll have to change the color to the new color.
Does everybody have social toolkit now? Yeah. Familiar with the social toolkit program? Shirley, have you had?
Our copy just got there yesterday, so we're gonna get back next week.
Ed, you familiar too?
Yeah, nobody, this one just got in Saturday.
Oh, sure, let's take it home Saturday.
Hmm?
That's about 4 weeks, 7 months. I need all that things. Yeah. I can just stay home and work the office.
It's one of those programs which is easy to get into, and so you quickly do something to learn the perks too easy until the customer calls you up.
What other stuff did you guys gonna talk about?
Well, we wanted to go into this because they're gonna be using it later on. Then after that, we were gonna talk about, our Department Pro, this will be.
Because there will be, people who know how to use this program over in the lab. Okay, so you won't just be like, do something.
Okay, let's go back to the first frame of the animation now. And now it's beginning to tumble in. And I'll start, let's go back here. So I'm gonna start here and I'm gonna use my black line here just to, now remember the black line will be ignored. And so I'm just creating some space for this to fall